Welcome back to TV5 News at 9. Get your phone or tablet out and scan the QR code on your screen if you want to learn more about our topic today. I'm here at Tri-City Furniture with Kathy Kilborn, and last week we started explaining the process of installing LVT flooring, but we only got to the subfloor. There is so much more we need to know. Kathy, you said there are two different installation methods, floating and gluing. Can you explain the two?
Yes. Well, in LVT, the original product was always designed to glue down. And so again, the subfloor needs to be very dense so that the glue doesn't absorb down into it like maybe particle board would. So, but because people wanted an easy floor to install, they also made a click version, and we've had click versions with laminate floors, but they snap together and they just go over what's existing in a hard surface. So you can go over ceramic actually, and laminates, and old linoleum. So those are very easy because the subfloor doesn't have to be quite as smooth because we're not dealing with glue.
And you were telling me the floating method might be easier because the subfloor is not needed, right?
Right. And so a lot of people will like that click system, float it over the existing, and you don't have to mess with another subfloor.
So now we've determined the product installation. What comes next?
Well, once you know which kind of product you're using, then you're going to have to determine how you're going to lay it. And I always say start with an outside wall because typically those are straighter than interior walls. And you're going to prep to get all your baseboards off, or if you plan to add an extra piece. But you get that ready because once you start laying, you don't want to have to mess with that stuff. And if you're doing a bathroom, you have to pull the toilet because a hard surface floor will go under it, not around it.
So how do you know what wall to start on?
Well, that outside wall is really good, but also look at the length of the space because if you're using planks, it's really good to run it with the length of the room, and to consider areas that you don't have to backtrack. So, for instance, going around a floating island in a kitchen or a hallway that might turn, you want to try to keep laying and not have to try to back up to put those pieces in place.
So next comes laying the floor. How do we do that?
So depending on what you're using, the flexible glued down products are very easy. I brought the tools. You just need a straight edge and a utility knife. They're vinyl and they're pretty easy to cut, lay in place. If you're using a floating floor, they're stiff. They're going to need a saw. So that's going to be a little bit more work, especially if you're going to use like a table saw, will give you a straighter edge than maybe a hand saw.
Sure.
So depending, but you lay your pieces, always starting in the left corner, running it down. When you cut off the end piece, that next piece will start your next row. So it isn't hard to really lay either one, just have the right tools.
What about door frames? Should you cut around those or remove them?
Well, because there's so many different shapes and curves, that a professional installer will actually undercut that door frame. So it's a special way to cut across. So when he comes to that door frame, he just slides the LVT underneath of it, and it's a perfect fit. So that's what I suggest for people to do, but it's not maybe as easy as what you might think. Cutting around it can be a little trick.
Well, this easy install sounds like there's a lot of steps involved for sure. Have we covered everything?
Well, there's probably more things, but these are the basic things.
Okay.
Once you're done, you're going to have to put your baseboards back on. If you choose to leave the baseboard, maybe you're going to just add a quarter round around the edge because hard surface needs to be protected on the edges. So you always have to have that baseboard or the extra added on. You're going to move your stuff back into place, and keep in mind, don't slide it. Pick it up. You don't want a chance wrecking your floor. And I might add that when you're thinking about these differences, why a lot of people like the click, it seems easy. But in commercial, that's the reason LVT came. If we damaged a piece, and it's always would be in the middle of the room, they can heat the glue, it's a releasable glue, lift that piece out, put a new piece in, and you're done. Whereas you've kind of given that up when you click them together because they're all stuck together. So again, there's a lot of things to think about for your space and how you're going to use it, because when you're done, you want a beautiful floor.
Awesome. Well, Kathy, thank you so much for explaining the step-by-step process to installing LVT flooring. Once again, it is so important not to skip those beginning steps so that everything is perfect in the end. And if you missed last week's episode, you can find it on our website at WNEM.com. Thanks for tuning in to Design Time.